Hey, what's up? This is Coach Josh Graves. I am here today with Mr. Jason O'Donnell, real estate professional in Orange County, a good buddy of mine, somebody that I've been in networking circles with for a while, somebody who has been a positive resource in my life and somebody that I hold a lot of reverence for as a professional and as a dad and just a good human. You're a good dude, bro. So really excited to be here today talking with you. But today we're talking about the Fitness Umpire Showdown that's coming up on June 15th. And this year, we chose to partner with Team Brody and the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation to give to a cause that I think I get choked up talking about and thinking about, man. It just absolutely kills me to hear what you've been through and you've had to live through and what other people in our community are living through and fighting through. I have two littles. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I love my boys so much. So I first heard about Team Brody and joined for one of your walks in, I think, 2021. And that's the first time I heard your story. And, I mean, it just shook me. Jordan was months old at the time.
You're strapped to you. I remember that. I remember the walk. And he was just long for the walk. I loved it.
Man, so absolutely honored to partner with you this year and to give to a cause that I think really matters and is making a huge difference. I'd love to hear a little bit about Team Brody and tell us about Brody. Tell us about your journey a little bit and what you guys have been through.
First off, when we talked about the showdown too, I was so excited because I think the core values, Fitness on Fire, and the core values you have align so much with what you're trying to do for the community, what we want. And so that's why I was so excited, because I intimately know you as a person, your wonderful business and the people there. And so I think when we had the idea of the showdown and I heard about it, it really let me know that there's something wonderful you guys are putting together and to be part of it. And, kind of telling our story of Team Brody, pediatric cancer, and kind of our journey. We first time dad when I had Brody, so I had no clue what I was doing, my son, and just like any other dad. And he was about 11 months old, and he kept having this head tilt. And at first we thought, it was a head tilt. So went to a physical therapist and did all the stretches. Maybe it's something with the development part of it. And he kept throwing up and losing weight. And obviously, an 11-month-old baby can't tell you very much. And you can't blame any of the doctors that we were with or anything, because they were trying to go down the checklist. We kept going back, changing formulas. I think at one point I was getting formula from Germany. I was trying everything. You just do what they tell you. Like, okay, it could be this, could be that, could be a stomach problem. And one day, stayed home from work one day just because something just didn't seem right, and took him for a walk. And my wife and I were talking, and just enough was kind of enough of, why is he throwing up? Why is he losing weight? Something's not right. His head tilt was getting deeper. And at first it was cute, like in the pictures. You have this awkward little side head tilt, and then the more we're looking at it going, wait a minute, something's off. And you have to trust a family father's intuition of something's not right. And went down to Children's Hospital, who's unbelievable. I recommend going there when anything ever happens. It's meant for kids. But the problem was there was nothing they could really find. We were down 6 or 7 times prior. So finally we kind of just put our foot down and demanded to get in and figure out what was going on. And our primary doctor said, if you can get in there, we can do more tests, get through ER, get them admitted. Our testing was 3 months out, normal standard
If you don't
stuff.
mind me asking, when you say get in there, what's that mean?
So with the ER, we were trying to get admitted to the hospital to try to rush some of the testing up so that we can figure out what's going on. The protocols,
they were going through triage and whatnot, and they're like, oh, there's nothing, we don't know what's wrong. It's okay.
And it was everyone was doing what they're supposed to be doing. The problem is they check off items that are the basic items first. And again, cancer is a word you didn't even think of then. It was just, a stomach problem. Maybe he's got a bug again. I don't know. You're a first-time dad. You just kind of go with it. But that's exactly what happened. Was we'd go in there and they would go through the checklist, and then they'd say, do a follow-up appointment. And we'd go do the follow-up, and they would set a stomach test for 3 months down the road. Available. So we kind of came up with a strategy that if we can at least get them in, we can have a primary doctor help coordinate maybe some earlier testing, or at least check off a few of the boxes, like the stomach test. I thought it was a stomach thing for sure. Okay, sure. And so I just want to get them in there.
Most health problems are stomach related. I mean, that's a fair thought.
That's the first thought too. As a dad, you're like, we gotta get back, man. We gotta get back to life here. Can we figure out the stomach issue? Sure. That's your first thought. And so we got admitted into Children's Hospital that night, and they did the stomach check and the test and everything. And the doctor came back and said, there's nothing wrong with the stomach, nothing wrong with the esophagus. We're going to order a CT scan. So of course, what's a CT scan? I don't really know. I mean, I've got a general idea of it, and I know when you played football, you get it to make sure you didn't get rocked too hard. But why for my kids? Oh, let's do it. And we kept in that mentality of maybe we're going to be out of there in the next hour or so, 2 hours. We'll figure this thing out, get them some medicine. That's the first thought that goes through as a father. You don't think of anything big.
Yeah, sure.
And the CT scan came back and said there's something unusual with the findings. And I remember this young doctor, and I say young, I was 30s. You can tell us not young, but he walks downstairs and he was kind of shaking, and he grabbed my wife and I in the cafeteria, and he's like, "Do you guys come up with me?" And we're like, "Can you just tell us here? We got some food. Like, what's going on?" And you could tell he was shaking. I didn't really put two and two together until I looked back at it later. And he didn't want to really tell us what was going on. And our son was already in the ICU just because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. And he calls us into a room and he says, your son has cancer. Like, first thing out of the mouth. You're like, what? Like, that's, I guess the idea is to take the blow. And then you look in there and it's a room of people. There's a brain surgeon team, which is like, what's a brain? They said oncologist, and that's when I clicked again that oncology means cancer. They have a support team, which is great. I mean, great human services, of people there. But at that point, no, anyone can tell you anything. You don't care,
Right.
And so I remember they went through the list of all the people, and we're sitting there going like, our life just changed from having a burrito downstairs to walking into a door with a team of people. And they said, your son's been moved to PICU, which is the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, because he could go into seizure at any moment. And we found a 2-inch by 2-inch brain tumor on his brainstem. And that kind of started our journey right there, just getting the news. And guess we were going home that night. So, we decided that at that point, you just kind of have to take things. You call family. You figure out what you need to do. And you just kind of take it in. And it's a lot of trust. You trust these people you've never met. You trust doctors. You trust, the nurses. And that's tough as a dad, to give that trust. So once they told us that, it was pretty much of, what's our game plan. It didn't happen like that, by the way. It took a while. I remember my wife checked out, understandably. I think she went underneath the table for a while. And I think I just tried to figure out what to do. What's the next step? So that's how we entered our journey into the cancer world, which is...
Out of curiosity, this was 11 months.
Yep.
So 11 months when he was diagnosed.
Yep.
So when did you start... You started noticing some of these things, and when you started taking him in for some of those things, how long was that between when you first noticed and you were trying to make some moves before you actually were able to move the process forward?
A great question. I think, about 5 months in, we started noticing the head tilt, which was the first sign, and ended up finding out that was actually pressure on the brainstem that was pushing his head sideways. So
Poor child,
it's funny is they had us go to physical therapy, and I was doing like the arm stretches and like all this other stuff, and I'm thinking to myself that probably wasn't going to help. But again, going down the checklist, which we can't blame. But yeah, that was the first sign, was that, and then as the tumor grew, it then affected all the other functions of the brain, which was throwing up,
digestive and
balance. I think his dizziness probably was affected with the way probably him not being able to walk as well. It was kind of like a sideways walk, when they start getting to that. So that's, probably about 4 months, 6 months is when it started. And we were pretty adamant. But again, I wish it was the stomach thing. That would have been something we could have just addressed and got some.
But I'm
some
so it's so crazy when you go back and you think about something felt off that day. I decided to stay home from work. We made a decision that we need to really push this thing forward. And then you get to the PCIU and they're like, yeah, we gotta take him in because it's like a now kind of thing. Yeah. Like you talked about your dad's intuition and stuff like that, man. There's something at play there for sure.
Yep. I think there is, and I think it's being, first off, being aware to your kids. You have to be around them to be aware of them. I mean, that's one of the things too. I think being kind of, not knowing everything, because I don't know everything, and asking the right questions, I think is important too. And if you got something that really is stuck in your heart, I think it's okay to go out there and ask the questions. And until you find satisfied, or until you know what it is, and that's kind of what we learned. And they the next day they introduced us to the surgeon team who was doing the surgery, which is crazy because they're like, by the way, I'm the only guy I think to hug the surgeon ever at Children's Hospital, but known as the hugging dad, I think, after the surgery. But yeah, they come in with a medical team and even have attorneys with them because of the amount of blood loss that he can incur during brain surgery. Could be death, leads to death, and they have no problem reading all the things that could happen. Of course, my wife at that point was focused a little different emotionally than I was, so I had to kind of go through talking to these doctors. Brain surgeons are not known for their bedside manner. They're known for their skill. And by the way, I'd rather have them be very skilled. There's stories when I was on the PICU unit of a car crash where they were called in with an hour's notice to do surgery on a spine. And I'm sitting there going like, these guys are like, I couldn't do that. It's
a lot of pressure, man, for sure.
Yeah, and this is their life, so they're skilled at what they do. And they came and did the surgery the next day. All our friends' family was there. We sat outside. It was a 4-hour surgery for a 1-inch, 2-inch incision.
Gosh, longest 4 hours of your life, I'm sure.
Dude, you just waiting. It's just a long waiting. And grateful for family and friends, by the way, too. Like I was looking back at that huge support system, and sometimes the people in the situations are the least you expect are the biggest supporters, which is really funny to think that. But no, the surgery came out well. And gave the doctor a hug, and Brody was put back into a breathing unit for a while for recovery from brain surgery, and put it back up, and that was the start of the tumor until we found out, the next steps of the tumor, which was the tough part. So,
yeah. So at the time of this recording, my son's going to turn 1 year old tomorrow.
Wow.
So I
same age,
man. Yeah. Your story, it feels differently empathetically right now for me. So thank you for sharing. So what happened next?
They got the tumor out, which was huge. They told us I love the doctors come in. We've got to tell you something important. I'm like, what is it? We nicked his earlobe. He may not hear in his left ear. I'm like, we'll get him a hearing aid. Like, how's he do it? Like, is it, they get the tumor out, you get this stuff, like your mind completely changes. And they were worried about breaking the news about hitting the earlobe for me. I'll figure it out when we get there. If he can't hear it, he's still deaf a little bit in his left ear, but it doesn't affect him. But that was the least of our concerns. What they did next is they took the tumor to a testing site, and they determined what type of tumor it was, which would determine if we are done or if we have to go into chemo and radiation, another process. So they told us that it's very, very unlikely to have an aggressive tumor, that they removed the tumor. There's some roots still involved in there, but they feel that they got the majority of it out, and the surgeons felt very comfortable. That's why they went so close to the brainstem, because they wanted to get all the tumor out. So they tested, and of course it came back as one of the most aggressive tumors it could be. So we're like, now what? It's step 1 surgery done. Step 2, and it was it's called an ATRT, which is a rhabdoid tumor, and it's in the base of the brainstem. And the type of tumor that it is highly aggressive to come back. And so we're like, so what's the next steps? So we do the ultimate family dad thing you can do. We start calling every hospital you can find. Hey, we've got this, you've got friends who chirp in about, you got to go to Boston, you got to go here. And we started finding our network was pretty powerful of people, everything from St. Jude's. We had a really good friend who was in a relationship with a St. Jude's marketing person. And we're like, no way. And they said, we'll fly you out. We'll do whatever, we'll go with you. Like the support was unbelievable. People in Boston, Philadelphia, and we loved CHOC, Children's Hospital Orange County was amazing. We wanted to see what else was there for his type of tumor because it's very specialized. And so we asked one of the brain surgeons, what would you do if I asked him, what would you do if it was your kid? He said, I was the only person ever asked that. And he said he couldn't give me an honest answer. And one of the answers is to let them pass because he sees the results of what happens to the children after the chemo and the radiation functioning. And he has to let me know that is an option. In the end of the day, we make the final choice if we want to fight, but he can't give me a recommendation. He says, I just can't. You have to go out there and explore what your options are. My job's the brain surgery, and here it is, but one is to let him pass or let him enjoy his life while he has. The other's to fight it. So we started calling all the hospitals, and I called Boston, and Boston said, there's a Dr. Jonathan Finley in L.A. that specializes in ATRT, rhabdoid. And I said, no way. I said, oh, great. He says, I hate to see your family come out to Boston and take you away from their support system. He's actually the best there is. And so I called Philadelphia. I said, Philadelphia, hey, can we come out there? I got the son. We'll be on a plane tomorrow. And they said, actually, I was a resident for Dr. Jonathan Finley in Los Angeles. And he specializes in rhabdoids. So I got 2 for 2 here. So we asked our primary doctor, can you help us connect with Dr. Finley? And he said, yeah, definitely can. He says, here's his cell phone number. And we called Dr. Finley, and within 4 hours of being discharged from the hospital, we were up in L.A. He literally came from his house, walked in, and first thing he did was looked at my son and says, oh, you're not sick. You look like a happy baby. And he had a staff behind him. He taught at USC, NYU, and he told us that if this was leukemia, blood disease, or anything else, I wouldn't be talking to you because I think there's better people than me. But ATRT is what my specialty and focus is. And he was about to retire. I want to leave this industry preparing children to live, not die. And he won us over right there. We admitted to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, LA that night. And, kind of summarizing what Brody went through, it was about 6.5 months of high-dose chemo, the same chemo a 200-pound man would have had. A lot of it was, I hate the word testing, but it was definitely progressive because this tumor hasn't had a lot of history of research.
Yeah, 11-month-old
Oh, yeah. And they don't know how to develop. They don't know what to do. He did through blood transfusions. I think it was 51 of them, if I remember. He went through bone marrow transplants, with multiple bone marrow transplants. And then at the end of it, Dr. Finley says, well, we did all the chemo, we did this. He's like, with this tumor and his age, I think we've got to do radiation. He's done for radiation. He doesn't believe that it supports the children's development of their brain, but he says, I've got to worry about survival versus longevity. So we did 31 treatments, I believe it was, of radiation. After
51 treatments of chemo.
Yep.
31 treatments of radiation. Gosh, man.
So he went through quite a journey. And
this is over the course of about a 6-month span.
Yeah, pretty quick. We were home for 3 days on it. So we ran my business out of the bottom of the hospital, friends and family. We lived there. I was a first-time basis with every person on the street corners of CHLA walking to get hamburgers in the middle of the night. Nursing staff we became really good friends with. We were pretty much live in there. I think the only reason they ever let us go is because insurance required us to leave for a certain period. But they brought him back immediately and spiked fevers. And so, and then he was admitted out of the hospital after the treatment, and he was going for every 6-month checkup. Now he's on every 1 year, and now he's about 11 years cancer free.
Yeah,
so very, very positive story, and positive thing. So I'm glad to share it with you, and hopefully our story is very positive. A lot of children's cancer stories don't come positive. There's a lot of difficult challenges with the survival rates, things like that. So, we understand how blessed we are, and we don't take that for granted. But I think it's the idea of how can you help others, and what can you do to give back to those people, and be very aware that a lot of them don't end in the same story. But if we can be some type of hope for those that are fighting, maybe that's our purpose. So it's been it's been a journey. That's how we cross paths here, and funny how the world aligned us up, and that's the story of Team Brody right there.
How the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation come into play, and how did you end up meeting them?
Oh, that's a great question. So there's a lot of amazing organizations out there. I just want to start with that. And when you get into this world, you find out a lot about them. The Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation did a walk, a Reaching for the Cure walk, when we were in the hospital, and my wife's best friend and one of my really, really close best friends decided to do the walk. So we were locked in our hospital room, and they were sending pictures from this event. And we said, that's really nice. And they had Team Brody shirts on with little baby feet. It was really cool. A lot of our friends came. They invited people out. But it really started with 2 people just getting together and saying, let's do a walk. And so we got out of the hospital, and we started hearing about all the different organizations, and we wanted to see what can we do to help, where can we get involved. And we ran across Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation and found out that so much of what they do supports the research that Dr. Finley was doing. And so we called Dr. Finley and said, have you heard of this group? They're amazing. They fund the work that no one else will fund. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, children's cancer only gets 4% of cancer fundraising towards research. 4%. And I asked Dr. Finley, well, why is that? They're kids. He says, because they don't have a voice. He says, when an adult is affected by testicular or by breast or these horrible cancers, they're more open to their pocketbooks because it affects them than children, because they don't want to admit that kids get cancer. It's the psychology behind that. No one wants to admit a kid's hurting. So people don't ever want to address it. And I remember Dr. Finley telling me this, and I was like, he's like, but they're 100% focused to the research of children's cancer, and they also do everything from scholarships for kids. They do things from helping families if they're in financial problems. They adjusting to life when you come out of networks. So I found out more about it, and we said, what can we do to help? And the first thing was to form a team and start walking. And so we made a commitment every year since that first walk to be part of the team. Team Brody's our team, and Brody still calls it Team Brody Day, even though he's like 13 now. And we get our friends, our family. I believe in friend giving. People laugh at me, what's Friendsgiving? It's fundraising through friends. I believe it. I support them. If they ever come to me, I'd love to help. But we saw a really good group of people, and I think it brought a lot of spotlights to the other people around us. And every year we meet 2 or 3 new families just diagnosed at the walk, and we give our cell phones as an open book. And so as we got deeper into PCRF, I found out what a great organization it was. And again, it's been about 11 years. And about 2 years ago, I started talking to them about how I can help more. And about a year ago, I was welcomed into the board of actually the board of directors for PCRF. And it's an honor to be among those people because they're there for the same reason and goal. And it's become a passion. And my wife is also heavily involved, more than I am, in these events. She's the real strength, with Children's Hospital Orange County, the Glass Slipper Guilds. So, we feel, I hate the word obligation because it should never be an obligation, but we feel a duty to see what we can do to help other families, help people. And, kind of like what you're doing, with this here is that you can now, be a ripple to help the people that's going to come for the showdown, and it's really neat. So that's how we cross paths. And I think they're stuck with me for life now. So
nice. I'm sure they're lucky then. Thank you for sharing, man. I have a couple questions about PCRF. For families specifically, what kind of support does PCRF give to the families?
Mm-hmm. Great question. PCRF was founded in the 80s with the sole intention of research, of learning more about the tumors, specifically to children, and testing and giving these doctors funding that were ignored or that just weren't on the important list for research. And so that was the original intention, and that's still our goal. But over the years, the mission statement and what we do has changed, and that is we want to address the quality of life for the children with cancer and the family's quality of life. And what I mean by that is research is very important. It's still the root of our foundation, and most of the proceeds go back to very, very, very aggressive, specific, and defined research. But what they started doing was finding out that families may be in struggles, for a child going to college now. Maybe cancer survivors finally going to college. So we created a scholarship fund. And which is really cool, yeah, because it's like because the kids are making it to college. Like when they started PCRF, the kids weren't making it to college.
I was going to say their rate of survival, yeah.
Oh, it was horrible. So that was a huge step. So as PCRF has evolved, so is what they've done for the families. They do camps also for a lot of the children. They'll support certain camps. They do a Western roundup for a day out with the kids, petting zoos. So they do a lot of the personal connection and social relationship as well too. Financially, if a family is struggling with certain direction or research, or they do need help with how to navigate certain things financially, there's aid support programs for that. But say the majority of it still goes back to the idea of research. How can we make sure that the next family doesn't hear the words their kid has cancer? And it's unbelievable now being on the board to hear what some of this research is, because it's just crazy. Like the type of research that these doctors are doing is so in depth that I think if they keep going deeper, they're going to find out the type of tumor, the defined of it. How does that tumor react to certain chemos or radiations? And the idea is what treatment can they do with the least amount of harm to the child? For years, cancer treatment was a poison. And there's a reason. It's survival or poison. Now it's still some very, very dangerous, deadly chemos and things like that, but at what levels? At what control? At what pace? At what program? At what pattern? At how often? How little? How much? Is what's now we're finding out is why the survival rates are going up. So it's been neat to watch that. From there, it's like I am not a scientist guy, but to learn about it is just really neat. But that's PCRF's main mission, or still is the research.
Man. Again, I'm sorry, I just keep getting choked up, so I'm like trying to.
I'm right there with you.
Keep the bass in my tone while we're having our conversation here. Gosh, man, I can only imagine it has to be a whirlwind of challenge. I mean, you basically talked about like the hardest year I could possibly imagine. If you don't mind me asking, talking about living in the hospital for 6 months and the 80 plus treatments that Brody went through. What's the financial burden of something like that on a family?
Really heavy, and I've been blessed enough to have insurance. We're very good for very good insurance, and even with that, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, easily. And there's a lot of good programs out there, government programs, but it's got to be very specific, so it doesn't cover a lot.
Especially for something super specialized and very rare.
Yeah.
Right.
You think about a lot of the families I met in the hospital had to stop working, had to stop the income to care for their child too. So I think there's a double association on that. There are programs out there. We've reached out to them. We were lucky enough to have a position where, we had the health care that allowed us, but even with then you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to this day, with his scans and his treatments, we hit maximums of all of our insurance every year. So we earmark easily $30,000 a year just to make sure that he's getting the testing and survival out of cancer. He's not really in remission because his tumor's so aggressive. There's not the history of remission. We'd like to say he's in remission like that, but I think because there's not the history track record of research for his type of tumor, there's not many kids past 16, 17, and 20 years old that they've truly tracked his type of tumor. So we still live in a checkup yearly status where we go in there and we don't expect anything. We don't, we manifest anything positivity and that it's going to be there, but we go for checkup every year. And it's an entire day process from blood work to full body MRIs to scans to testing. And that's the point when we leave that day, they tell you your son has cancer again, or you're good for another year. You've kind of had to prepare yourself every year for going into that. And financially too, by the way, as a dad and a young family and a very humble family that we have, it's there. It's not going away. So, I guess I got to go out there and work a little harder is the only thing to do. But it's tough on the families. And that's why I think there's a lot of programs that we're looking at is how can we help the families that really need the help. And a lot of times it's connecting them with the right people, the right organizations. And PCRF has done a very good job with networks. We believe that the patient and the family is the first priority. Our donors are the most important thing in the world for keeping it funded, but the purpose is the people. The patients, the kids, and the donors' hearts go to that. So it's been really interesting to see run across other families relationship-wise. Marriages don't make it. And I can tell you a lot of marriages don't make it through because you tend to blame each other.
Gosh,
But we've been very blessed. Every marriage has its ups and downs. This one we test a little harder, but it's been good. So we've seen a lot of those outside sources that you don't think about than just the cancer treatment.
Thank you again for going there a little bit and sharing the story. I've met Brody before a couple years ago, and I actually believe we're going to get him in for some workouts at the gym here soon. And I think we're trying to rope him into actually participating in the showdown this year. So that should be really cool to have him there with us.
So Josh may not know he's a hero in our house, but I've been showing him all the your stuff on YouTube and on socials and everything. Oh yeah. So he thinks you are the official American Ninja. I just want to go on record.
All right, good.
So
good.
You got a star coming in
Facts.
there, and I think it's cool for him to be able to look up to someone like you as well too. He's a great mentor. A great person, since they obviously never listen to the dad in coaching for anything, which you'll find out as you start coaching your kids. So
cool. Typically what I do is I have the dad slip me a 20 and I just tell him all the things you want me to tell him.
Oh, awesome. I need my car washed.
So
it's,
wash his cars.
That's it. That's it. Some laundry done maybe.
Builds
So
shoulder strength.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
But he's so excited for you to take the time and genuinely to just try something. He struggles still with his body's smaller. He's going to start growth hormones. He gets picked on in school because of his height and size, but that's junior high.
Sure.
So
Kids
I
are
think
mean as hell.
Oh, they are, man. Like
Kids
they
are
really
mean as
are. He's a sweet kid.
I still lose sleep over some of the things kids were saying to me when I was a teenager.
Oh man. And so I think to have him be able to come over to your gym, come over to Fitness on Fire and see how he does with the rope climbs or the other things like that, and push him a little bit. I think it's good for him to be pushed into different boundaries. And I think I really would like to develop health and fitness as something important in his life for confidence. You mentioned bodybuilding before you've got into and sports and things like that. So I think that's something he needs. I think he needs a little more confidence than the average kid because he's been through a lot and he's not the biggest kid and he's the smallest. And so I think that what you're doing is so cool. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, how he adapts to that. And let's see what he can do. It's cool.
Man. Yeah. Love it. I want to cover a couple of the details of the showdown so you know more about the showdown. So the showdown is going to be June 15th. It is an event at Fitness on Fire. It's a team event, so there's six team members. You have 3 guys and 3 gals. each person is designated to pick one event each. So, and then what we do is we score the top 3 in each event. So you have a chance to earn points for your team. Some of the events include things like pull-ups, or one of them is like a 500-meter row, and then we have a push-up challenge. So a lot of stuff that pretty much anybody can do. And then there's a couple Fitness on Fire specific challenges that we keep in there. Yeah. So we have a 1-minute rope climb, which is pretty infamous. I think the gym record right now is 16 rope climbs in 1 minute.
Holy cow.
Shout out Will Gomez. I was 15.
That's Coach Will?
Yeah, he knocked me off the record board.
Oh, man.
15 before was the gym record. I'm coming for you, Will.
Yeah.
And then, we have the multi-rig elimination challenge, which is really cool. It's like an American Ninja Warrior thing where it's like hot lava. You climb this rig. You have to go from one side without touching the ground and ring the bell on the other side. And then every time the whole wave gets through the obstacle, we change the obstacle, make it progressively harder until it ends up being something absolutely silly. It's typically last man, last woman standing, so that's really cool. Then there's a 7th event overall, which is the team relay. So then the whole team participates together, and we have like a full-on race at the end. The day's really cool. It's about a 4 or 5 hour event. We'll have vendors, local businesses out there. We'll have mostly health vendors out there, so that's kind of cool. So you'll have like samples and giveaways and free massages and adjustments and all that kind of stuff. And then we typically award the top placing team. So the top scoring team that will be awarded for. We'll have the top fundraising team, because we'll have a separate pathway for people to do fundraising. And then we will have a team spirit award, which is really cool. And so every year people come dressed up. We had one team dressed up as the Average Joes.
That's the best.
Year
yes. Dodgeball.
Dodgeball, right? When they get the costume switched up. So they dressed up that one year. That was funny. And then we had one year that we were like the Smash Brothers. There's like a Pikachu and a Mario Brothers. And then there was one team that was like a Dr. Seuss theme team, so it was like thing 1, thing 2, they had the blue hair and all the stuff. So I think we'll see a lot of team spirit this year. I'm trying to invite some other gyms out this year too to just bring some people into the community and have a really good time. The way the showdown started, because we were doing a lot of weekend events and a lot of things, and I kept hearing about different causes and things that a lot of our members were giving to at the time. And I was a little bit younger when I started Fitness on Fire. You know, I've had my gym for 10 years now.
Which in the gym world is unbelievable, by the way.
Thank you. But
restaurant businesses and gyms are really tough. So it says a lot that you've done that. So.
Man, Fitness on Fire is just a wild energy and an incredible community.
It's different.
Thank you.
Which is really good.
I'm biased, but I agree.
I'm outside looking in, and I agree with you. So,
so 10 years ago, at the time, I really didn't understand like how to do fundraising or how I could give to any of the things, but I knew there was some good stuff going on in our 4 walls. I was like, well, how do we get this to kind of bleed out of this and actually affect things that matters? And I had all these really sharp, incredible people in our community that were already involved with giving the things and doing things like that. So I kind of just leaned in the community and I was like, what do we have to do to take some of the stuff we're doing on the weekends and like just point it towards a good cause or whatever. And it became really simple. It started with workouts where it's like, hey, today's workout, just make a donation for today's workout. Today's workout's free. Make a donation if you want to. And I think the first time we did that, we raised a couple $100 and we were like, oh, that's kind of cool, right? And we were able to, something there. And then we had the idea for the showdown after doing some team event together somewhere else. And when we did the showdown, the cause that we decided to champion was with an organization called Human Options. Mm-hmm. And that year we partnered with the Irvine Police Department because I had a police department member I was training at the time. And they had a really big partnership with Human Options. Human Options is an organization that helps victims of domestic violence in Orange County. And they basically help shelter them or get them out of harm's way. And so a lot of the times the Irvine PD is responding to a domestic abuse case, getting that person out of harm's way, and then getting that person into the hands of Human Options so Human Options could get them to safety, essentially. And I had a buddy who had gone through some pretty bad childhood trauma like that himself, and Human Options possibly saved his life. And he was doing a fundraiser, so we partnered with him the first year, and that was the first time we did something like this. But what was really cool was that the very first showdown, we had a young lady who had gone through the Human Options program and had gone through absolute terrible trauma. didn't know like if she was going to survive, like got to a low of lows, and then went through their programs, they have like these prep programs where they help these women get on their feet, learn financial literacy, things like that. And
It has to be everything too. I mean, it's learning new mindsets for a living. I mean, it's like a fresh start for a lot of
sure,
people.
like leaving everything behind to get out of harm's way and then start over life essentially. And by the way, as I say it out loud, it's not just women that go through domestic violence in Orange County. I think they said 1 in 4 women that you either 1 in 4 women either has is currently or will be abused at some point, and then it was 1 in 7 men go through some type of domestic violence also. And then domestic violence isn't always physical. Sometimes there's other forms of domestic violence, which includes like financial abuse, verbal abuse, and other things like that, right? So these are all things I've learned from working with these organizations. But my point was, this young lady, she went through the program, she got on her feet, she started her life over, and then she came and participated at our first showdown, and she did a couple of the challenges. And watching her surprise herself with what her strength was and what she was capable of, it was so cool, man. I got a chance to tour the facilities of Human Option after the showdown, and when I toured the facility there, they have like a playground in the in their facilities, so the kids that have been displaced have a place to be kids still. And the playground was like complete at capacity while I was there. Like, so these were kids that were in the midst of going through these transitions and were in a place that wasn't their home, but were living there while their parents were trying to figure out how to restart their lives because of the domestic violence they were going through. And this playground was the busiest playground I'd probably ever been to.
And what those children probably seen too. It's you think about the two that the parents are going through. Children are pretty smart. They see everything. And imagine that playground, those kids playing and being there and being full capacity. Opened your eyes too.
Wild, man. It's been really a blessing to have a platform like Fitness on Fire that has a lot of great people that are willing to give to great causes and come out and sweat for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so after many years partnering with different organizations, partnering with Team Brody and the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation felt really right this year. And I'm really excited for the partnership with you guys. I think that we're going to have a lot of fun. Yep. And if you are listening to this right now and you haven't yet gotten your team ready for the showdown, you've got a couple of weeks right now. It's June 15th of 2024 is the next Fitness on Fire Showdown.